Good evening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to Hilaal Live. My name is Faraz Patel. Today, Hilaal Live takes a bit of a different angle. We're outside the Independent Electoral Commission House as some of the key figures looked ahead to this year's national and provincial elections. The following interviews I had were with Sy Mamalobo, the Chief Electoral Officer, and the Vice-chairperson of the IEC, Janet Love. Here are the interviews. I'm standing here with the CEO of the Independent Electoral Commission, Mr. Sy Mamalobo. Mr. Mamalobo, thank you so much for joining us here on Hilaal Live.
Yes, good afternoon.
Mr. Mamalobo, all set and ready, of course. The logistics are done, registrations are done, and I think we are moving into those final phases of the elections, aren't we?
No, we are. The publication of the timetable marks the point where we intensify preparations for the elections. And over the next few months, we're going to be making sure that we comply to the requirements of the timetable and so give South Africans an election that is credible.
Mr. Mamalobo, 30 years in democracy, I mean, it just seems like yesterday, all of these years have passed and we've seen this free and fair elections. How much does this mean 30 years on for our democracy, which continues to grow and thrive?
It's important that we take advantage of the electoral process more so as we mark 30 years of our own democracy, because a lot has happened in the past 30 years. But, citizens, those who are on the voters' roll, they need to make an assessment and decide which way the country should go politically.
Mr. Mamalobo, of course, now we have, independent candidates contesting the polls. Again, this just marks such an important part of this election, doesn't it, that there is an allowance now for independent candidates to contest?
Yes, our democracy is evolving, it's not stagnant, and the mere fact of the participation of independents for the first time is indicative of the continuous growth of our democracy.
Mr. Mamalobo, over 300 political parties that are going to be contesting. If this isn't the fruit of democracy, then what is? It just shows that this allows for so many political parties to contest in the space.
Yes, definitely. The number of political parties shows that the political space is open. There's democracy that is kicking and alive in South Africa, and we are happy that we've been able to facilitate that.
Free and fair elections, that has obviously been one of the slogans of the IEC. This time around, how does the IEC make sure that, learning the lessons of before, that once again, that the free and fair elections logo is maintained and sustained?
No, we will, through the systems that are inherent in the law, ensure that the process is free, fair, as it has been in the past. Nothing is going to change on this occasion.
Mr. Mamalobo, thank you so much for joining us on Hilaal Live.
Thank you very much.
I'm standing here with the Vice-chairperson of the Independent Electoral Commission, Ms. Janet Love. Ms. Love, thank you so much for joining us here on Hilaal Live.
Thank you for being here.
Ms. Love, we were talking off air about the Hajj pilgrimage that's going to happen. Can you just maybe give an example for those who will be traveling for Hajj but want to vote? There was special mention, of course, of the special vote that they will be allowed to. Can you maybe just give more clarity with regards to that, please?
Certainly. There is an opportunity for people who wish to vote as special voting citizens. Those days will be on the 27th and the 28th of May. But in order to apply to be able to give notice that you want to be you want to take advantage of the special voting days, you'll need to do that by the 3rd of May. And so people who are going to be traveling on Hajj and who feel that that it might get in the way of their travels and they want to vote, there's certainly then going to be an opportunity for them to make that application. The system at the moment is already live, so people can go online and apply for a special vote now, and then they're having served that notice, they will then be able to do that on the 27th and 28th of May.
Ms. Love, we are just over 3 months away before that election starts. Voter education from now up until obviously May 29th is going to be important, isn't it? Because anyone who's hesitating to vote, the next 3 months is going to be important in trying to tell them that, listen, you have a democracy, use it to the best of your ability.
Absolutely. I think what we're saying to people is it's your democracy and it's your vote and use it. At the same time, from our point of view, what we are going to working with people like yourselves, really try and spend a lot of time on is to give people an understanding of the new things in this election. There are 3 ballots. There are independent candidates so that they know those kinds of differences. There are certain procedures that are different. So, for example, being not at your own registered voting station, but being at a different voting station, how you must apply in advance. You can will give notice in advance. You can no longer go to a voting station and fill out a form and say, I'm at a different station. That's a change in the law. And so we're applying the law and people must apply. So all of those kinds of changes, as well as our dates and deadlines in terms of the timetable, that's very much a part. Once we know what the ballot papers look like, there'll be a lot of communication. But of course, the importance of voting, aside from our messaging, we're hoping that candidates will also not only give the messaging, but inspire people to vote just because of what they're offering. But our message is, this is your democracy, so use it.
Ms. Love, I heard a representative of the ANC mentioning that tolerance amongst political parties must be adhered to. As the IEC, I'm sure that is something that you would want to, as an organization, to stress, because without tolerance, there can't be a functioning democracy.
We have a code of conduct and we have laws that really do cover issues of prohibited conduct. Our code of conduct signing ceremony is something that we take very seriously, and we hope all contestants do as well. It's where a contesting either individual, in this case of these elections, or a political party, commit to having really thoroughly understood the importance of the code of conduct, which includes being able to ensure that these elections take place in a spirit of peace, in a spirit of open competition and contestation, and in a spirit of ensuring that the freedoms of expression, the freedoms to differ as well as to agree, are protected and exist, and that people can have an opportunity to exercise their rights without intimidation. So those are things that are in the Code of Conduct, and we are very committed to ensuring that contestants commit to that. They need to do that, and also that that is something that is upheld during the course of the elections. We also work together with various organizations, faith-based organizations, civil society organizations, as well as having our own trained personnel who do try and assist when it comes to conflict mediation, where that conflict does erupt. But we hope that that's something that contestants will also help us to manage so that it doesn't prevail. That's the idea.
Ms. Love, 30 years of democracy, 30 years of the fruits of it. This election, more than maybe any other, is going to be so important, isn't it? Important in the fact that it marks really the 3 decades that we have come far as a country.
Absolutely. We've had a number of really important, successful, democratic, free and fair elections, and each one has its new conditions and its new challenges. This one won't be any different. But we're confident that this is a democracy and that the majority of citizens of this country see the importance of safeguarding that democracy, and having a free and fair election is absolutely a part of that.
Ms. Love, earlier on in the press conference, you spoke about, obviously, the objections that some political parties can raise. I'm sure as the IEC you're hoping for that not to happen, but that's probably a 1 in 100 chance. As the IEC, are you ready to deal with, of course, any of those objections? And is there sort of timeline that you are giving when those objections get launched in order to make sure that come the elections, there's no real delay in that, because the 29th of May is the date, and I'm sure the IEC, government and South Africa as a whole wants to make sure that that date does not get altered.
Look, first of all, the election processes are now something that are processes that are governed by law. We have published in the Gazette the electoral timetable and the various stages of what needs to unfold are absolutely time-bound. They're bound by dates, they're bound by law. And ours is to be the organization that manages, but also manages that process in accordance with the law. We can't make law on the turn. So, yes, you're right. Various parts of the election timetable provide opportunities to the public to raise certain objections, not objections just loosely, but objections also in terms of the law. So, for example, when there is an opportunity for people to object to the voters' roll is open at the moment for people to inspect. We've provided electronic facilities at each of our voting stations for people to inspect that roll, and we have a deadline by which stage those objections need to be lodged. That's the 4th of March. But the objections can't just be, I don't like that, or I think the following 35 voters don't belong there. They have to be in terms of the law, and it's a law that is made by Parliament, and the law says you need to say what the objection is, why it is an objection, but very importantly, the voter whose details you are raising questions about is a voter you must have actually approached to say this is what you're doing, so that they have the right of reply. So these are processes that we will enforce. We will enforce both the deadlines but also the content of the law to the best of our ability. And the same applies in terms of candidates. There's a set number of days. We have to also resolve those objections within a set period of time.
Ms. Love, I know I'm preempting, but obviously after the elections day itself, there are 2 or 3 days, even about 4, to do obviously the counting. What are the requirements in terms of a deadline in order to make sure that the public knows, of course, who, of course, the eventual winner is, but how the breakdown of the vote counting has gone down?
So we have 7 days as the Commission in which to pronounce on elections. We have in the past been able to do this within 3 days, but given the fact that we have 3 instead of 2 ballots, we have additional complexity, we are not sure that that will be possible to do it in the way that we need to do it. Obviously, we don't delay unnecessarily. I think what's most important is that there are certain systems that prevail. The first is that any ballot paper, whether it's from special votes, which are in envelopes, or ballot papers that are completed at the voting station, may not leave that voting station until those ballots have been counted. They cannot leave there until they have been counted. So otherwise, they are in sealed bags if there are special votes that have been from home visits, or they are in sealed boxes. They have not been unraveled or unbundled. They have to have that happen in front of party agents, in front of observers, by electoral counting officials. Once those counts are done, that image of the election results from that station is a result slip that is photographed by the Commission, but also can be photographed by the contestants, by the observers, as well as being displayed. Now, that photograph is one that is available to all political contestants, independent, in its actual original form. Once that has happened, the counting has been complete in the voting station. The form is taken to a local office. It's audited by independent auditing processes, and only then is it captured into the system. Once it's captured into the system, although there are opportunities for people to object to certain things, which the Electoral Commission has to process, but prior to that, the actual numbers, once they have been captured, those are transmitted simultaneously to members of the media as well as to the Results Operating Centre, where the whole of the nation can see them. We can only confirm those results, first of all, when all results are in, but secondly, when any objection has been resolved. And that is when we can confirm the results as the Commission. So as things are unfolding, our nation is kept up to date, and we don't keep our results secret. And also, we just hope people understand that more complicated areas, bigger numbers of voters, it can take longer time to finish the voting, but also to finish the counting. It's not because we prefer a small station to a large station. It's just that sometimes a small station is quicker and easier, and so we won't keep those results from anybody. We'll put them up when we know that they've been audited.
Just have one final question. What role do NGOs, the public, political parties, politicians need to play alongside the IEC to make sure that from now up until elections, everything is smooth, even on elections day, that everything is done in line with our democracy?
Well, I think first of all, all of the different stakeholders that you've mentioned need to do everything they can to galvanize people to understand the electoral system, to understand the fact that this is our democracy and that they need to participate. I think that's primary. I think the second thing is just to get people to understand that what we have in this country might have many, many problems, but it's worth protecting and it's worth making better. And thirdly, I think it's important for people to respect. Everybody has a right to their opinion, has a right to their decision about how to vote. The vote is secret. The vote must be kept secret, and it must be respected regardless of what your decision is.
Ms. Love, thank you so much for joining us here on Hilaal Live. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
That's Ms. Janet Love, the Vice-chairperson of the Independent Electoral Commission. From myself, Ross Patel, it's now time for your news, finance, and sports. Do stay tuned to Hilaal Live.